this week we're going to be talking about the Haitian Revolution, another one of those very significant Atlantic world revolutions.
Our third revolution.
In a row, yes. Set from the early 1790s until the beginning of the 19th century, 1804, approximately. And we're going to be looking, in effect, at a revolt against French colonial rule in the Caribbean. That's what this is about in so many ways. So brings up themes of colonialism again and, well, also relationships of authority that we've been looking at throughout this course. One of the big questions for this week, maybe the big question, is how does the Haitian Revolution fit into the overall story of revolutions in the Atlantic world? Mm-hmm. It's good to think about that kind of big question right now because, well, we have to not just try to make sense of the bigger story in this course up to this point, but we also want every one of you to think about how this lesson might help you think about the big themes for the final exam. In relationship to this big question about where the Haitian Revolution fits into the big story of revolutions, is a question that's related to the sources, because how do we answer any big question like that? One of the takeaways that I hope everyone has from this course is that when faced with a big question, turn to the sources. Think about the sources. So, to rephrase the big question, what can we learn about the
place of the Haitian Revolution in the Atlantic world of revolutions by
the authors of the primary sources in particular. But we also have introduction to a primary source collection by a set of historians who are providing a historiographical interpretation. So we have that to work with as well. So we're thinking about perspectives on the question of significance. Yeah. So what's the significance of the Haitian Revolution in the Atlantic world? And so to think about that, there's lots of aspects.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great historiographical question. Mm-hmm. Historians have not always agreed that this was an important story. Classic work, written in the 1950s, R.R. Palmer, The Age of Revolutions, a book that's still widely cited as one of the critical touchstone books on the Age of Revolutions.
I think we both have it on our shelves.
We both have it on our shelves. He catalogs, obviously, the American and the French revolutions, but he's got Sweden, he's got Austria, he's got every damn thing in there.
Even the Dutch.
Even the Dutch. I guess you got the Dutch in there. But he neglects to even mention, this is 2 volumes, 1,200 pages. He does not mention Haiti. So you might think, well, tiny island in the Caribbean, why would you bother? Because this is the Atlantic world. The Atlantic world is powered by slave labor. 12 million people crossed the Atlantic forcibly crossed the Atlantic in the age of slavery. This is an enormous story, and this is the first serious and successful rebellion against that slave regime. So it's an enormous story. William Blake, the famous English poet, in a poem, references the Haitian Revolution. He says, all the Atlantic mountains shook. Much better than oceans shaking. I'm not sure how an ocean shakes. All the Atlantic mountains shake, and it's a powerful image of the field that had. Yeah. And if you read colonial newspapers at the time, they're acutely aware. Virginia, Georgia, the southern United States, they're acutely aware of what's happening over there. Mm-hmm. Cuba, acutely aware of what's happening in Haiti, because there are slave societies. These are populations which are dominated demographically by slaves. They have enough people to certainly engage in revolt. The only thing holding back a potential revolt is a balance of power, weaponry in white hands in the slave owners' hands. That is broken in Haiti. It's successfully broken. Right. So that's just enormously important.
So what was going through or not going through R.R. Palmer's mind?
One wonders.
That is a big historiographical question that historians do ask and talk about. We're not going to be talking about that particularly this week.
No, we want to understand it. But we certainly... It's a good little lesson there for students when they think about historiographical questions. That historians change what they think is important. It's about perspective, it's about judgment, it's about what sources you look at. It's about a political climate of the day. It's about all series of questions that influence what we think is important. Yeah. At one point, it was perfectly acceptable to say, whatever. At another point, it's become really one of the dominant stories of understanding
Right.
a major period of global history. So nice sharp differentiation there.
So lots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Time to talk about the toolbox?
Time to talk about the toolbox.
So we've got sources again. We're coming back to sources mentioned earlier in the discussion, but really as a toolbox subject, you can never emphasize it enough. This week, your main concern in the forum discussions will be to try to answer the big question with a close reading of the primary sources. So far in this module, we've introduced everyone to distant reading or reading with voyant tools, reading big sources. But we want to give you a break from that for the moment. We'll come back to it and get you just to read the selected documents that we have closely and carefully. You have to pay attention when you look at sources to who is writing any given source. So that matters in addition to knowing when the source was published and where, if it's a book or some other writing, or how it was created, if it's a painting, whatever. But here we have a series of writers. Who are these writers? We shouldn't assume that we know what they think. If we figure out who they are, we still have to read the documents carefully. So that's an important thing to remember. Find out who the author is, when he or she wrote, under what circumstances or contexts, and then what's going on in the source itself.
It's very easy, I think, particularly for students, to view Haiti as a slave society, which it was, and then assume all the black people are slaves, all the white people are masters, and it's that kind of simple arrangement. But in fact, it's much more complex than that. You have a substantial free black population, substantial portions of which are fairly prosperous. They do quite well. And what you'll see is that those people have their own sense of what's going on there. So early in this story, and it's very much related to the French Revolution, Haiti is a French colony.
Yes.
So when the revolution takes place, parts of the colonial elite, some of whom are black, are trying to participate in the revolution on the side of the revolution. They're seeking political representation within the French Revolution as free subjects. So the French Revolution is opening that door to them that they hadn't had open to them before.
But it's not everybody in that class of people.
Some of them actually want to then include slaves in that. Some of them don't. Contested, complex story underway there.
Yeah.
So make sure you know who's talking.
And then make sure you read carefully what they're saying. That's also implied by what you're outlining, Danny. And then just one other important but supplemental note for this week. In an earlier lesson, we included some guidelines for not just, to think and act with integrity in your own analysis. That is related to avoiding plagiarism. But the point is not so much to avoid plagiarism, but when you pay attention to who says what, and you're clear about that in your own analysis, I or you can also then take advantage for our analysis and our point of view and our perspective when we analyze the views of Auger or other writers. So the point of avoiding plagiarism is to avoid an academic sin, but also to be able to take advantage for your own unique analysis, your own insights as a historian. And that's related also to this question of authorship and who writes. We are also writing. So act with integrity, avoid plagiarism. We have some guidelines that remind you about how to do that.
Excellent. Complex topic, important topic. I think people have a few eyes open here.
I hope so.